Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is Psychic Medium Raymond Guzman, and today I'm going to be doing a reading on Josephine Baker. For those of you that are not aware who she was a dancer, performer, an activist, a part of the civil rights movement. This woman was gorgeous inside and out, and I'm not going to get into the details of what some people already know through history, but she served a very important purpose. And she did a lot for African Americans in her own way, following the civil rights movement, etc. And then also acting almost like a spy in some ways in her own country, in France and those areas, getting information from people of, soldiers and things that were rivals, that because at that time, France and those countries were bickering, whatnot. So if you go back to your history books, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I feel like she faced a lot of discrimination even from our own black folk here in the U.S. because even though she was born here in the U.S., she left for France, to live in Europe, basically. And so when you do that, people look at you at a certain way and they judge you. And I feel like she lived with that stigma, even though when she came back, she was very vocal. There were still a lot of black people that didn't like the fact that she came back and thought that maybe she thought she was too bougie because she was somebody that, befriended Grace Kelly, and just a lot of other celebrities and people that she knew. She had connections. But what Josephine is telling me, she's saying that her life was far from the glamour that everybody thought it was. Being a black woman, she was faced with a lot of discrimination, and she's just appalled by how we are acting today, still as white people, as black people, how we cannot get together and get along like the vision that Dr. Martin Luther King had back in the time of the civil rights movement. She kept showing me that there was a lot of changes in her. Her life was far from what people think. It was peaceful, that it was this glamorous, that, because she knew people. It was like she didn't really have a home. She just there was constant changes, what she's telling me, throughout her life. Constant movement from Europe to the USA, back to Europe, to traveling the world. But there was just not, like, she didn't have like one. She was very much like a gypsy soul, is what I get. And in this lifetime, she had a lot of important roles to play. One was to help enlighten people, to move them towards taking a stand, to being stronger and in their beliefs. And the other one would have been for her to empower other females out there and let them know that if you're black and you are out there, you can do just the same thing. Even though she was light skinned, she's saying that she wanted to empower her her sisters out there, for them to also know that they could do that. So and I get that she would have been very attracted to money, even though it was something that she didn't really want to focus on a lot of her life, being married, etc. She always had like a backup plan. And she was a very smart woman. She was a Gemini. So Geminis, are very smart. They're very integral, very loyal to a certain... But she knew how to do the poker face, which is why I think a lot of people associate Geminis as being two-faced, but we're really not. It's like we have two sides, But in many ways, she was a chameleon. She could do many things. She had many roles that she could play, apart from speaking French, apart from acting, apart from performing. She knew how to do different accents and things like that. She was really good, and she listened. A lot of people don't listen, she says, and she listened to things and she saw things. She was very intuitive. I feel like this woman was very psychic, very intuitive in her lifetime, and that's what carried her far in her career, in her in her life. Even though there wasn't a lot of happiness, there was a constant moving that. And she tells me she felt trapped in her life in some way, because I feel like people started coming to her and wanting her to do things for them, like spy, wanting her to give them the tea, give them the information, but she wasn't being compensated for a lot of this, and they took advantage of that. I do feel like she had to use her body in some way. And I just say that to get information out of these men. So it wasn't a very pleasant when we go dig deeper. And I don't think the history books have this written down. You know, back then it was like impossible to tell your life story or to get things documented by paparazzi cameras. It was a different time frame where we didn't have that technology. But she did a lot of things that she wasn't proud of, but she says she had to do what she had to do. Somebody had to do it, and it made her the woman that she is, that we know her for, being very outspoken. She made a speech, and she said in that speech that when I speak, when Josephine is mad and she speaks, that the world will listen. And she didn't lie. She listened. And being a Gemini, again, that we're good at communication, she was good at communicating. Some people wanted, like, I feel like people thought that she wanted to be a white woman, but that wasn't the case. Even though she married, light-skinned men, Caucasian, French, whatever you want to call them, she had multiple partners, but she wasn't trying to be a white woman, a white girl. She was very proud of her ethnicity, of, her roots, and she always held true to that. But she had to walk away from these situations and walk away from people, walk away from the civil rights movement, because she knew that her life was in danger. One, because the people didn't like her, because she was very outspoken, and that's a very dangerous thing back then in the civil rights movement. They considered, any woman back in the 60s, the women didn't have the voice or the rights that, the equality that we have today in society for a lot of our sisters out there. So you saw what happened to Martin Luther King. They ended up assassinating him. Well, I feel like she took that to heart, and at some level it scared her that she could be next, that she, I feel like she was threatened. Her life was threatened, but she's not going to say all of this. But there were threats. The Ku Klux Klan, the KKK, was involved in this, and it wasn't a lie. I don't feel like she was afraid, but on some level, on a deep level, she's telling me that she just didn't want to go out that way because, she had other focus. She had her children. She had other people that she had to focus on. But a lot of lies, a lot of people tried to manipulate her. A lot of people backstabbed her, going out and trying to gossip and whatnot. But she was afraid to take a leap of faith when it came to love. Like, I feel like her lesson in this lifetime would have been around love, not finding the true soulmate. I feel like every person that she was with was more of a lesson for her, and so that's why she was married like 4 times or 5 times, something like that. It was just like a repetitive cycle, and she acknowledges that now. If she says that she could go back in time, she would have fixed that. She would have eliminated going that route, because again, that was not the message that she was trying to send to women. But it was a very different time back then. And I feel like women, even though they were more restricted, she's telling me that she could not live her life alongside of men that were abusive, that were cheaters, because cheating, honey, goes back to the early 1900s and beyond that. Every culture has had cheaters. That's something that's never going to change. But she is telling me that she did have a true love, but she was not married to this person. And it was a white man. It was a white brother. So there was somebody that she was attracted to. It was in her bloodline. Somebody that she was attracted to, that was a soulmate that she met, but she could not be with this person. And on some levels, I do feel like she did think about like why, like she didn't want pity parties from anyone, even though she had celebrity friends and people that gave her, a place to stay, or that wanted to help her, and she had the friendships. At the end of the day, she was Josephine, and she didn't want to have or any handouts to her. She always wanted to work for it or do something to help them, and so that's why I feel like she's telling me that she didn't feel like in this lifetime she had a lot of ground. Even though she had a lot of power, she was heard, she was respected by many. There was a lot of people that didn't like her, and there was this element where she feels like she didn't have a solid foundation for herself, because there was just constant change. And I'm getting that the Prince of Monaco, or whoever Grace Kelly married, that man, her husband, did not like Josephine and didn't like Grace being around Josephine. So I feel like there was some racism even coming from that person, and that's what I get from Josephine. That she noticed a lot of things about people and how they acted and how they reacted to her. And she would test people. She said she would go up to people in the U.S. and she would go to these hotels, to these fancy restaurants and whatnot, and she would test them to see if they would serve her. So I don't know, but I take her word for it. It looks like she was very bold, and rejection didn't hurt her because of her skin color. What hurt her was that it was being done for senseless reasons, the discrimination, the racism. And today she's just appalled by everything that's going on. And she's very proud of all of our black brothers and sisters that are out there that are fighting the good fight like she did. And she acknowledges that, and she says that she supports it. Black lives matter. They've always mattered, she says. That was the message that we were sending back then, she says, but it was clouded. It once Martin Luther King died, murdered, there was like no longer a voice for the people. And so the movement kind of dissipated throughout time. Sure, there's been organizations like the NAACP and other organizations out there that have been very vocal, but there wasn't a leader after Martin Luther King, really. We had Malcolm X and other people, but there wasn't like someone like Josephine that made people, men and women, stop in their tracks and listen. And they listened to her because she was black and because she was a female. And she was beautiful, let's face it. She was gorgeous. But she did feel very lonely towards the very end. And people kind of sought her out for her opinions, her voice, for her support and advice, what she could do. What they could do, to continue in some way, some of these organizations. But she was just tired at the end. Sadly, she did pass away. They document that she had a cerebral hemorrhage. If you're not familiar with what that is, that's basically a stroke. She had a stroke, and I do feel like this was not foul play. I really do feel like she would have had it, and I feel like it would have been somewhere on, I want to say like either the right. I want to say it's the right side of her head in the back, but I feel like she would have had high blood pressure. She had some pre-existing conditions already that would have contributed to this. It almost feels like an aneurysm, but they marked it as a cerebral hemorrhage. But this was years of, of her being on the go, and not taking good care of herself towards the end. But that's what I get. That's the reading. That's the messages. A very eccentric woman, a very valiant woman, a very good soul here on earth, a very beautiful soul, an inspiration to all of us brothers and sisters that are listening. And I wanted to do something on my channel as well to do some more historical figures. And since we are focusing a lot right now on the Black Lives Matter, I'll be doing some other ones. I'm going to be doing Rosa Parks, and some of the other key historical figures of our time. So if you have a suggestion, leave it in the comments section below. Blessings, love, and light. Until next time. Bye.